the bottom of the tiers is going to be teams that, you know what, we should probably just level the house and let's just start fresh. All right, the next one's going to be, you know, waiting for inspection. Young quarterback, waiting another year. Can this guy play? Do we have to move off this guy? Could be a year away from, hey, we're not too bad. No cracks in the foundation, needs a coat of paint, we're okay. Or, hey, we found some severe damage, level the house.
Yeah, like just
then we got next one. We got leaky plumbing. Right, house overall is pretty good, but you got some problems, and if they're left unattended, it could go very, very wrong. Next one needs paint. Pretty much a really good roster. Needs a couple positions here and there to really polish it up, and you're in business. And finally, ready to sell. Top couple teams, really like complete rosters. Have the stud quarterback, really good coach, good support, all that.
Yeah. So either way, that'll be good. It'll give us a good way to kind of quantify all these different teams and really judge their needs going into this offseason, into this offseason, in this free agency, going into the draft, big things like that. So let's go with NFL rebuilds.
I'd like to clarify before we start the graphic. You're going to see the teams are not in order within the tier. Obviously, the tier above it is a better team, but within the tier itself, they're not ranked. Okay, starting at the bottom, like we always do with level it. I think we'll start with Atlanta. For me, quarterback is an absolute no. And I like Taylor Heinicke, but he's not your franchise quarterback.
Not even close.
We think Arthur Smith is okay as the coach, but I'm not sold. I think their skill position players are overrated, and there's no semblance of a defense. I would level it and restart it and get a new. I'd probably trade any really good piece I have, go get a bunch of draft picks, start over, draft a quarterback, rip it down to the studs. I'd level it.
Yeah, 100%.
I think Houston's the same way. I think they're already kind of in the process of doing it, and you already signed your left tackle, so you're good there. You already got a new coach this offseason. You're probably going to go get a new quarterback. They're in the process of leveling it, and I think that's the smart thing to do. You got to be interesting, and they've been boring and bad.
Yeah, ship them out and go get guys that are just talented. I don't care what positions. You need so many of them. You just pick a guy, and he'll be better than what you have.
Yeah.
So start trying to build around something. Get something you can build around. But, I mean, the team you have now, you can't roll with that. Not even close. You have to do something about it, and that's to the point where it's just bring in the backhoe, just bring it in, knock it over, redig a whole new foundation, and we're starting from the studs.
Yeah, I think the next two you can say the same thing. Actually, the next three, Indianapolis, Carolina, and Washington. For me, they're kind of in the same spot. Both have been just signing quarterbacks here, 1 year guy there, 2 year guy here, just trying to stay above water and not be awful.
They're trying to be relevant.
Now for Carolina, it hasn't worked because Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater haven't worked out. Indy, they've been able to be somewhat relevant, but this past year, wheels fell off. And Washington, are we kidding with the Jacoby Brissett stuff? Are we kidding?
No.
Rip it down. Come on. What are we doing? Either go draft a guy or rip it down. I mean, Taylor Heinicke was a better option. You let him walk. So, I mean, those three are in the same position. They keep trying to stop-gap quarterback. Quit stop-gapping. Rip it down to the studs. Go get a new guy.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers, I think, look, you had your run with Brady. Now it's time to rip it down. Let's start fresh, right? Let's pivot quickly. Let's not sit here and try to convince me that Levante David and Baker Mayfield are going to lead us to a Super Bowl. Let's be realistic.
No,
rip it down, start fresh.
It was a really old team. You need to go get youth. You need to completely rebuild that, shape a new culture. It just needs change. You need change after Brady.
I agree. So next tier here, waiting for inspection, right? So these teams, we don't like the trajectory. Talk to us in a year, right? Talk to us after the inspection. This year is going to be an inspection year, right? So let's start with Chicago is one. We don't know. I think Justin Fields gets 1 more year. I think Justin Fields gets 1 year. They've got them legit receivers. They got picks in the draft, so they're going to go out. They're going to be able to acquire good talent. This isn't going to be an awful roster. If you can't win 6 to 7 games and be competitive and get better at throwing, I'm sorry, I'm moving off you.
And this year with Justin Fields reminds me a lot of this past year with Lamar Jackson, right?
A little bit, yeah.
You got to play for the contract. You got to prove you're worth something.
Yeah, but Lamar's was more worth it before this.
Oh, 100%.
Before this year,
I mean, he had an
more
MVP.
than Justin Fields. Yeah, right.
You had more of a sample size with Lamar, but this is still one of those prove it or shut up years. So you have to go out and really play well this year if you're Justin Fields. But yeah, this category makes sense for them.
I would say there's 4 teams here that kind of group together. Tennessee, actually, I would put Green Bay also in with Chicago. If Jordan, we're going to assume Jordan Love's their starter.
Yeah, we're assuming Aaron's in New York.
And Jordan's been here for 3 years. Jordan only gets 1 year. I'm sorry, Jordan only gets 1 year to start. That's it. I'm sorry you only get 1 year. So for Green Bay, they're in the same spot as Chicago. Let's see how the young guy plays. The next 4, though, are in a similar spot. So Tennessee, the Rams, the Patriots, and Arizona.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, Tennessee and the Rams, veteran quarterbacks, injured a little bit last year, underwhelming last year when they did play. The roster's aging. It's getting close to rip it down time, but you're clinging on to that last shred of hope.
Yeah, you really are.
For me, I'd rip it down. Arizona and New England. New England, Mac Jones, you get one more year. If you can't make it work, I'm sorry, that's about it, right? That's about it.
And when has Bill Belichick ever had patience with a guy?
Not very often. Not very often. And then I would go if Arizona, even if Kyler only plays 5 games, if it's another noisy year for Arizona, I think they're moving off Kyler. I think that's it. I think if they're noisy, this coach and GM didn't draft him. They didn't sign him.
And I can see very well behind closed doors people being just kind of a little bit irritated with Kyler in that organization.
Yeah, Kyler doesn't even have to go out there and throw for a bunch of touchdowns and run around like crazy. He needs to be an adult this year.
Look,
he needs to be a grown-up this year.
NFL quarterbacks don't have problems being addicted to playing video games. I'm sorry, but they don't.
They don't.
Once you hit 21, 22 years old, you first of all, you should be doing better things with your time, especially if you're an NFL quarterback being paid that amount of money. I'd like to see you in the film room a little more than like dropping into Verdansk.
Yeah, I agree.
Warzone. So let's get the priorities straight. He has this year to prove it, and if not, it's going to be ugly there.
Okay, leaky plumbing here. So let's start with like the Giants, the Browns, the Jets, the Vikings, and the Seahawks. I don't know what I'm getting at quarterback. We're talking Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, post his 2-year hiatus, is not the same player. The Jets, is Aaron Rodgers committed if he is going to New York? If they don't get Aaron Rodgers, who's their quarterback? The Vikings, I like Kirk, but he shrinks big time. And Seattle, Geno had one good year. I'm not saying he can't repeat it, but I'm supposed to put my eggs in that basket? No. It's like the overall, the rosters of those teams aren't bad. Those aren't bad rosters. But there's too many question marks for me to be like, oh, yeah, for sure. And I would go Dallas, Denver, New Orleans, the Ravens, and the Raiders are in a very similar boat as well. So Dallas and Denver, you have veteran quarterbacks, kind of underwhelming, a little bit hurt here, a little bit hurt there. Have some turnover on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Rosters are pretty good, though.
But you got problems with those
cap issues. And then I would go with the Raiders and the Ravens. Big contract problems.
Oh, 100%.
The Ravens are paying, or the Raiders, are paying a lot of big money at a lot of big positions. 2 edge rushers, 2 good receivers, a good tight end. Actually, they just dealt their tight end, so never mind. Actually, the Giants are paying for him now, the same category. So they finally moved up that contract. Jimmy G's not super cheap, although he's not wildly expensive, but he's not super cheap. And the Ravens, what do you do with Lamar's contracts? I don't think he's going to play under the exclusive tag.
No, and it could get really, really expensive really quick if somebody did make him an offer, and then you could try to match that. So they're not setting themselves up for success. And then you look at New Orleans, and they've been in cap hell for how many years now?
And they just keep pushing it down the road, and you're going to go ahead and pay Derek Carr that. Okay, good luck.
It's going to collapse.
And it's going to collapse. And I like Derek Carr. But let's be real here.
Much like with bad salary caps and leaky plumbing, you let it go for too long.
House is going down.
It's going to collapse at some point.
Okay, next one here. It's going to shock a lot of people. It needs paint. These teams are, paint and some shutters away from being ready to sell this house for $1 million plus.
The interior
the touch-up stuff. Buffalo. And now people might think, why is Buffalo not in your top tier? Josh Allen regressed badly. They don't have an offensive identity. Sean McDermott has been embarrassed in the playoffs. Don't have a run game. Offensive line's underwhelming. Defense is losing some starters.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's true. Now, granted, it's still a fantastic roster, and they're good enough at left tackle, star quarterback, star receiver, good edge rusher, a lockdown corner. So they cover all the main positions, and Sean McDermott's a more than capable coach.
And they're not the same team without Brian Daboll. Let's add that.
That's why they're not in the top. Then I would go Philly, San Fran, and the Chargers. I mean, both all really good. I think Philly losing a bunch of pieces. They need a lot of guys now. They need to hit on a lot of draft picks. It puts a lot of pressure on your GM when you go all in like that. You got to hit a bunch of draft picks now. That's a tough basket to put a bunch of eggs in.
Yeah.
San Fran, you need a quarterback. I'm sorry, or you need a healthy quarterback or a different quarterback. So that's why you need paint. And the Chargers, I need to see what Kellen Moore can do. And you're already in a dicey cap situation, and you're not even paying Justin Herbert yet.
Yeah.
So you need to figure that out first before we can put you in the top tier. The next 4 are all. They are considered lower tier in this tier, I would say. and these would be like shockers to be in this tier. I would go Steelers, Jags, Dolphins, Lions. Look, I'm sorry, the Steelers have a bunch of cap space, good draft capital, and a young nucleus.
Yeah.
A great head coach.
And they're starting to focus on the positions of need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Kenny Pickett's only going to get better. And let's be real here. If Lamar doesn't play for... If Lamar doesn't play for the Ravens, that division's not that good.
I mean, you got Joe Burrow.
Cincinnati's good. Deshaun? I'm not scared of Deshaun. I'm sorry, I'm just not.
Deshaun and a Lamar-less Raven.
I'm not scared.
No.
Sorry, I'm not scared.
No.
The Jags are really good. They just need to start refining. They need to get better on the lines of scrimmage, get a better run game, support Lawrence a little bit more, better defense.
Well, kind of for the same reason as the Steelers there. Like, they got that. They got that core.
They have the young core, a little bit of money, another draft or two. They're right there. Dolphins need a quarterback. I don't know what to make of Tua.
Outside of quarterback, though, they are ready to go.
Yeah, I would agree.
They probably need the least, I would say, out of those teams.
And finally, the Lions.
Which is a shock because we have them higher than a lot of other teams on this list. But
they just solved their secondary in a free agency.
Yeah.
Solved. Done.
And that was really the only bad part. Because you have the pass
Need some linebackers, probably. The pass rush should be fine. You could add another piece.
Yeah.
I don't think you need a quarterback right now. Jared Goff's a top 12 guy.
Let him play for just 2-3 more years.
Jared Goff's a top 12 quarterback.
But I would also say this could also be the year where they go out and they draft their guy. Like, if they want to go out and they're interested in a Will
I think they should probably go get another receiver, too.
Yeah. You got to get a weapon.
Yeah. But they're not that far off.
But, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown?
They're three good players away from being a legitimate contender in a weak NFC. That's a factor.
Well, I think if Aaron Rodgers leaves and everything happens as
if Aaron leaves, I think they win the division.
I think so too, because that opens up the NFC North, kicks the doors wide open. I actually like the Lions to beat the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins quite regularly.
I agree.
It's a good team. They're in this category. They're in needs paint. It's shocking, but I like it.
Couldn't agree more. Last one here real quick. Ready to sell. These teams, they're loaded. They're locked and loaded for the next about 5 years to make a run almost every year. These are the teams that you would expect, and it would be a letdown if they're not in the conference championship. So they are ready to sell. It'd be Kansas City and Cincinnati.
And there's only two, and we don't have any NFC teams. We racked our brains. We tried to give the NFC a shot here.
Philly is probably your closest one there.
They're the strongest competitor, but they have a lot of issues.
They just lost 7 starters. They lost their top 6 tacklers this past year.
And look, at the end of the day,
who's making tackles?
And because this is what we're going to get the most pushback for, is not having Philly in here.
100%.
We saw Jalen Hurts. Yes, he was great down the stretch. He was great in the Super Bowl. But outside of that, he was very pedestrian in the regular season. Like, early on in the season, that's when you had the big Gardner Minshew is better than Jalen Hurts. TikTok that kind of went viral and blew up there for a second. But those stats they're relevant. They're very, very, very relevant.
I agree. And so the first part of the season, like you said, pretty pedestrian. In the middle, he really picked it up. Remember, the last 5 games, including, I think, the first playoff game they had in the last 4 regular season games that he played, his pass rating was at 70s.
Yeah.
He had completion percentage in the high 50s. He was throwing for 130 yards a game.
Yeah.
He was a half touchdown to a pick a game.
Average.
Below average. So, I mean, let's be real here. Before the Super Bowl, he had about 6 bad games in a row before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just a fact.
But, he did show glimpses, but they're not ready for this category. I think the Chiefs and the Bengals are the only two that can really call themselves that are
I agree.
ready to go.
I agree.